Occupational Health, Safety and Environmental Incident Investigation course. Module 1. Developing a Conceptual Understanding of Incidents. Upon completion of this module, the learner will be able to define an incident as well as differentiate between the meaning of an accident and an incident. Demonstrate an understanding of and explain the classification of accidents and incidents. Identify and explain the factors that cause incidents. Define and identify hazards. Define and identify risks. Demonstrate an understanding of Frank Bird's theory on incidents. Demonstrate an understanding of and is able to explain the domino cause and control sequence, and identify and explain the activities that can be implemented to prevent incidents in the workplace. Defining incidents. There are various explanations as to what actually constitutes an accident. Some people define an accident as a sudden, uncontrollable, unplanned, undesirable event that disrupts the normal functions of people and causes or has the potential to produce or to cause unintended injury, death, or damage to property and/or business interruption. The Compensation for Occupational Injuries and Diseases Act, No. 130 of 1993, defines an accident as follows. An accident arising out of and in the course of an employee's employment and which results in personal injury. Injuries can be categorized into 4 different types, namely, disabling injuries. For example, amputation or permanent loss of a limb, first aid minor injuries. This refers to an injury that can be adequately treated by an appointed first aider utilizing the contents of a first aid kit. Medical injuries. This is an injury that will require treatment by a medical practitioner or an occupational health nurse practitioner. The injury cannot be treated using a first aid kit. Occupational diseases. A disease or illness that arises out of and in the course of the person's employment. This can be classified as a disabling injury. An incident, on the other hand, is defined by the Department of Labor as an event that occurs at the workplace where a person is killed, injured, or becomes ill. An incident can therefore be considered being an unplanned, undesired, or unexpected event that could result in physical harm to a person and/or damage to assets and/or have a negative impact on the environment. From the above, it can be said that the main difference between an accident and an incident lies therein that in the case of an accident, there is normally bodily harm or physical injury to a person, whereas an incident constitutes a wide range of events and not just an event where a person gets injured, killed, or becomes ill. Factors that cause incidents. The direct causes of incidents are the result of unsafe acts and unsafe conditions in the workplace. These unsafe acts and unsafe conditions are controllable, which means that incidents can be prevented. One must keep in mind that any incidents do not happen independently. Incidents happen as a result of a series of events that have taken place. There are 3 main factors involved in an incident: technical equipment, working environment, worker. These 3 factors in combination are the main reason why incidents happen. The following are the main reasons why people cause incidents. A. Fatigue and boredom. The mental attitude of workers also contributes to incidents. Some people like doing monotonous work, but some can find it intolerable. This could lead to incidents happening. B. Experience and inexperience. Insufficient skill or attempting a skill beyond a person's ability is often a contributory factor in incidents. C. Physiological, psychological, and social conditions. Physiological factors can influence a worker's ability to perform a certain task. Consequently, emotions and the attitudes of workers play an important part in determining and directing their behavior. The behavior of a worker may be positive when his or her behavior is positively directed towards safety, but conversely negative if he or she acts recklessly. Defining hazards. The Occupational Health and Safety Act No. 85 of 1993 defines a hazard as a source of or exposure to danger. There are many different kinds of hazards in the workplace, and several classification systems are used. Hazards can be classified in terms of its impact on a person's health, safety, and the impact it may have on the environment. Mostly hazards are classified according to their types. In other words, chemical, physical, mechanical, biological, ergonomic, and psychological. Classifying hazards according to their impact. Health hazards. An occupational health hazard is any agent that can cause illness to an individual. Safety hazards. A safety hazard is any force strong enough to cause injury or damage to property. An injury caused by a safety hazard is usually obvious. For example, a worker may be badly cut. Environmental hazards. An environmental hazard is a release to the environment that may cause harm or damaging effects. An environmental release may not be obvious. For example, a worker who drains a glycol system and releases the liquid to a storm sewer may not be aware of the effect on the environment. Defining risks. The term risk is often confused with hazard. In essence, risk can be defined as the probability of two or more hazards interacting with one another and the severity thereof, or the combination of the expected frequency, events per year, and consequence, effect per event, of a single incident or accident or group of incidents or accidents. The Occupational Health and Safety Act No. 85 of 1993 defines risk as the probability that injury or damage will occur. Various types of risks can be identified. These are inherent risk. This refers to risks that already exists within the object, substance, or process. Add-on risks. This refers to a hazard that is added that increases the chance of probability and severity. Speculative risks. Those risks that, due to their uncertainty, carries the potential for either loss or gain and are normally not insured. And pure risks. Those risks that result only in loss and damage and are normally insured. Risks also need to be classified in terms of low, medium, and high risks. Frank Bird's theory on incidents. Frank Bird researched the topic of incidents and came up with the following differentiation. For every one serious or fatal injury, there occurs 10 less serious injuries, 30 property damages, and 600 minor injuries or near misses. This should give employees an indication of where their incident rate is going within the organization. It is also critical to remember that occupational illnesses and occupational diseases are also included in the definition of an incident. The domino cause and control sequence. According to this theory, there are 6 factors involved in an incident, and they are involved in a sequence of events. A series of events, one dependent on the other, causes the incident. The incident itself is but one element of the whole sequence. A. Lack of control. This is defined as a lack of an organized system. B. Human engineering factors, also known as personal or job factors. Personal factors. The cause is the individual's attitude or behavior causing him or her to perform an unsafe act or creating an unsafe condition. C. Unsafe acts or conditions. The above are seen as a deviation of a set standard and/or procedure. D. Incident. An incident is defined as an unplanned and undesired event caused by unsafe acts and/or unsafe conditions and leading to injury, illness, disease, and damage and/or business interruption. E. Injury, illness, disease, damage, interruption. F. Cost. We classify the cost factor under insured and uninsured costs according to the iceberg effect. Insured costs are those above the line and include expenses such as medical and compensation. Below the waterline are the uninsured costs that normally exceed the insured costs. Activities for preventing incidents. When an incident occurs, the entire organization may be affected. According to the International Labour Organization, ILO 1983, incidents within a working environment can be reduced or prevented by means of the following: regulations, standardization, inspections. The ultimate purpose of incident investigation and analysis activities is to prevent future incidents. For example, knowing that 40% of an organization's incident involve ladders is not as useful as knowing that 80% of the organization's ladder incidents involve broken rungs. All incidents should be investigated, regardless of severity of injury or amount of property damage. The extent of the investigation depends on the outcome or potential outcome of the incident. For purposes of incident prevention, investigations must be fact-finding, not fault-finding. Otherwise, they can do more harm than good. Legal requirements of incident investigation. Section 31 of the OHS Act No. 85 of 1993 deals specifically with investigations. According to legislation, all accidents need to be reported to the Compensation Commissioner where an employee is injured or becomes ill. For this purpose, it is important that you have an understanding of the requirements and specifications of the Compensation for Occupational Injuries and Diseases Act No. 130 of 1993. COIDA covers all employees in all industries. However, domestic workers are not covered by the Act. The Compensation Fund. All employees need to pay a percentage of their total payroll into a compensation fund. The percentage is dependent on the risk profile of the company. In other words, a power station will pay more than a company that sells insurance, for example. A worker is entitled to claim from the compensation fund when he or she has been injured in an accident arising out of and in the course of his or her work. When he or she has become sick from exposure to hazards at the workplace. Reporting of accidents and occupational diseases. Employers must report any accidents and occupational diseases timeously. COIDA requires an employer to report an employee's accident within 7 days of the employer becoming aware of it, and in the case of an occupational disease, within 14 days. The aims and objectives of incident investigation. Workplace incidents can compromise assets and lead to persistent human costs. Critical incidents threaten an organization's 3 core assets: its finances, reputation, and people. What action an organization takes following a serious accident or incident in the workplace can make a substantial difference to both its corporate standing and its treatment by the courts in the case of a subsequent prosecution. To break the cycle and prevent workers from becoming sick and injured on the job, inspectors have to learn and practice the techniques of effective incident investigation. In doing so, underlying causes of past injuries and illnesses can be understood and corrected, preventing future tragedies from taking place. Incident investigation has the following aims and objectives: satisfying legal requirements, understanding what caused the incident and the immediate and underlying causes, preventing an accident from occurring again, introducing measures to prevent similar incident occurrences, reappraising existing risk assessments, improving the operation of the organization, satisfying stakeholders such as regulators, the public, and internal reviewers,